Hi, it's Anne-Marie from Charmed Life Therapy again, back with another little update on my thoughts about the whole "it ends with us" ordeal that we're all going through. I don't feel like motivated to chip in at quite every time something new happens, because I think there's plenty of people that are doing really good jobs of that, like Perez Hilton, like Candice Owens, Popcorn Planet, Colonel Kurtz, Dave Neal. Oh, I'm sure there's lots of others, but there's plenty of people doing really good job of breaking down anything and everything about it. Um, but yeah, just something occurred to me today that I kind of wanted to speak about, and it was kind of based on something that Dave from Popcorn Planet came out with, because I think he'd been to LA, I believe, to kind of do some research. He's doing a documentary about it all. I think previously they'd had a lot of content that they produced to do with Amber and Johnny Depp, and I think he's realising that this time around, to get started and make a documentary about it, document the whole thing for posterity, if you like. But he'd kind of gone, I guess, and he'd met up with people that not only kind of had Blake Lively information, but also Anna Kendrick information. Um, and it was funny really, because we had this premiere, didn't we, of Another Simple Favour, and Anna Kendrick was put in this awkward position of being asked, obviously, about Blake Lively, and that previously, at the movie, the first movie in this particular franchise, I think there was a lot of talk then at that point that the two stars didn't gel and get on. So obviously now, with what's happened with It Ends With Us, it put this movie into jeopardy, and the promotion of it was made very awkward because of Blake Lively's stance on everything. So of course we got these awkward little soundbite interviews, and you can read into that what you will, really. She was asked by one, I don't know if it was a fan or a reporter, what was it being like being back working with Blake, and she went, oh, and just kept on walking. So take that as you will. And then there was another, I believe by Variety, asked her an awkward question, just like as the final question. Tried to slip it in there under the radar about how did she feel about what the events that had been happening, and about how it had affected this movie. And Anna Kendrick just very blithely, or maybe she'd thought about this one, because this one was a bit interesting, because she did say that thing of, oh, I did ayahuasca this last, recently, and I just, this last year's just gone, basically, but I hear the movie's amazing, as if, she wasn't aware of anything and all of that, and said in this very deadpan, flippant way, and finishing it off with a blown kiss, that was a bit sarcastic, really. And you must have to be pretty tough to be a journalist, because it's like, was that personal? Was it not personal? Did I annoy her? All of these things. But the fact she said ayahuasca was very interesting, because, because there's been this high level of snark by Blake Lively, by Ryan Reynolds, this whole very constructed targeting thing that they do in terms of words and language and what have you. There was that very weird promo thing for It Ends With Us, where Ryan was saying stuff about he'd been on some meth journey or something, and Brandon Sklenar was saying, I think you mean ayahuasca, and blah de blah, and we're all wondering kind of, well, was it that something that's just inside, that he's done ayahuasca as part of his healing and personal growth journey, and that's what they're making fun of. So it was very interesting that Anna Kendrick used that specifically. Now, that could have been coincidence, it could have not been coincidence, but of course everybody's reading everything into everything. And that weird promo, there's that really weird thing of how they're all there wearing matching cardigans when they were filming that strange promo that involved Ryan Reynolds' mum and Hugh Jackman, all wearing matchy cardigans, and Brandon Sklenar. And it's like, was something like that happening on the Ends With Us set, that some of them, like Justin and maybe his friends were a bit matchy or something like that? So is this matching stripy cardigans thing a further dig at Justin? But it's just, it's what continues to stagger me is this level that they've gone to construct things and think up mean things, and banter and bringing in the friends who may or may not know what they're involving themselves in. And to have that play out over months and months and months and months, I mean, we're creeping upon the best part of a year now, aren't we, that all of this is happening. And the language that they've often tried to make Justin Baldoni use in terms of making him commit to agreements and statements that he doesn't want to, that kind of would be trying to force him to be, to make him find himself guilty in some way. The right words are escaping me, but it's kind of that level of trying to imply that he's acknowledging his own guilt in something when he hasn't done the things that he's being accused of. It's a very mean thing, trying to get somebody through blackmail and coercion, really, to commit to saying something that is not true about them, that makes them guilty of something. And what I was going to say about Anna Kendrick is, and Dave from Popcorn Planet, is what he was saying was, I liked what he was saying was, I like Anna Kendrick. I liked, a lot of Anna Kendrick's movies, never had a problem with her. But what I'm hearing is that she's also very mean and, pushes buttons and the rest of it, and, throws her weight about and all of these kinds of things. And I thought, well, I could have told you that forever ago. You don't need like a first-hand witness to say words out of their mouth in order to know that, really. You can tell that, because it's that same thing as Ryan. When you come across somebody in your life that has to use banter, and I hate that word, and I'm going to say why in a minute, banter, can't answer a straight question without using humour or without using snark, then you instantly know that you are facing someone who has had lots of things in the childhood probably that were not ideal, or they've had some forms of trauma, maybe an absentee father, or a father that was weird, or a mother that was weird, or narcissistic, or whatever. They have had stuff happen to them, and that is their coping mechanism. They haven't examined the whys and wherefores of their feelings. They simply, rather than dealing with stuff in a real way and resolving it, they've chosen to attack it in that way because they don't want to acknowledge anything. They don't want to acknowledge that there's a softer, gentler side to them, because that probably hasn't been very safe in the past. They might have had to lie, cheat and steal in the past in order to get their own way as a child, or to have some kind of protection or prioritization, whatever it was. This is their defense mechanism, this humor, this sarcasm, this saying sort of mean type things that you kind of think, is that mean? Is it not mean? This is all a clever facade. You're not dealing with the reality of the person, you're dealing with their protective device. So it's like a separate layer almost on top of the real person. So when you're met with a person like Ryan Reynolds or somebody like Anna Kendrick that uses an awful lot of that, you never really know them. You don't really know them. You only know this facade, and you'll either find that facade funny and acceptable, or you'll be really uncomfortable with it, and you won't know whether that person is being genuine with you or not genuine, because you might be a more empathetic person and you're open to energies and all the rest of it, and you pick up, I don't think this is being very nice to me. It's not funny. It doesn't make me happy. And that is the thing about banter, and why I've never liked this word banter. And, cause it's just that excuse for people to say really mean things that they kind of do mean, and then you're obviously upset if you're on the other end of it, and people say, well, what you want about, it's just a bit of banter, get over it. But actually they've used that as a means of, they know that's going to get to you in 99.95% of the time. It is meant, and it's meant because their actual self-esteem is like this. They have no self-esteem. So this is their coping mechanism, is to make you feel smaller than them. You know what I mean? And you have to kind of look at the whole picture. And when I'm telling you these things, it's not in a demonizing sense. It's a kind of, can we all wake up to this kind of sense? Can we all wake up to ourselves and what we do and how we show up in the world and what we do to other people? That's the sense in which I mean it. And that is why this whole "it ends with us" thing does kind of trouble me, really, beyond the excitement of it all, is that sense of, how do we get people to wake up and see what they're doing to themselves? Because it's quite clear that Blake and Ryan are just going to follow this through as far as they can. I mean, they might hit a point where, due to Taylor Swift or something or other, they might have to cave, but whenever they think they can keep going, they will, because they think they're in the right. They're never going to think, or they're never going to admit that they've ever done anything wrong, which is something else entirely. And I think Blake, you could see at that South by Southwest premiere, that frenetic talking, that never stopping for breath, that wild hand gestures and all the rest of it. That's somebody who's very, very anxious. I've always said, I think a big problem about Blake is that she's not a grown-up. She's not got great self-esteem. It seems that way because she looks a certain way and she blah, 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 the non-stop talking. She's always got something to say, but that's another coping mechanism. It's another means of hiding a lack of personal security. You know what I mean? So when the rug is pulled out from her feet, self-imposed, she's done it to herself, she is left floundering because she's got nothing underneath to back that up, to cover up. We can all do stuff in life that kind of we regret after the fact. But the majority of us, if we've done a bit of work on ourselves and faced up to things, we have something underneath that helps us get back a certain level of equilibrium. I don't think she has that. She's been brought up very entitled, and I've said it before, she's been brought up to get whatever she wants, to not hear no, to not accept no, to swindle and cheat and the rest of it in order to get what she wants. I mean, we've heard now that she kind of got Ryan's gin brand involved in the first Simple Favour movie by they were looking for a gin brand, the director was, to have in the movie, and she kind of said, oh, we all like this gin, me and my husband like this gin, didn't let on that it was actually Ryan's gin, and got that in the movie. And we're hearing now about another movie, the Rhythm Section, which I really was looking forward to at the time that came out. Because it reminded me of The Assassin, that Bridget Fonda movie. I quite like a female assassin, and the whole Jennifer Garner thing with Alias. It's quite a good concept, isn't it? So I thought, oh, that'll probably really appeal to me. And I thought it was so boring in the end. But what we're finding out now is that she actually manipulated her way into that movie, that she wasn't destined for that movie at all. And she kind of, again, she let slip in an interview that they'd kind of conned Barbara Broccoli, the producer of that movie, into getting her into that. Blake had conned the director into attaching her to the project, and then Blake had insinuated that back to Barbara Broccoli, that if the director was on board, she came with the director. We're hearing that now. So it does seem like she's somebody with no self-awareness who will just do whatever's required to get whatever she wants. And this is the thing now, you can do that in life, but sooner or later you will come a cropper of a situation like what is happening now, where it will all fall away and you will be exposed. And whatever's underneath you that you've been hiding with all of this will come to the surface, like Ryan Reynolds, like Anna Kendrick, like whoever else is out there who's not particularly a great person because they've never assessed their actions in any sense, or, had a mirror held up to them and being forced to face up to who they are. This is Blake's mirror now. This is Blake's opportunity to see what the kind of things that she's been doing is about, and maybe question why she hasn't been as successful as she'd like to be. And maybe is this the reason why? Because she's doing it from a place of inauthenticity. But I don't know that she'll ever question herself to that extent. And just like kind of on the subject of what classes as banter and bullying, for whatever reason, it just reminded me today of like something from my childhood when I had my first job at 17. And bear in mind, I left school at 12 with school phobia, so I'd had several years of real insecurity and experiencing depression and anxiety and being afraid of everything. So this going out and getting my first job at 17, and I was really forced into it because I had no money, I had no choices really. My mum was pressuring me, well, it's like if you don't want to continue going down the mental health route, then you have to get a job. And it's like I wasn't emotionally ready to have a job really in any sense. So I was doing this waitressing job, and any waitress will tell you, especially, I don't know what it's like now specifically, I imagine it's still pretty tough and fraught. But you know, back then, in what would have been kind of maybe 1990, something like that, you know, you as the waitress, you were often baited and tormented. You know, the chefs could say anything they wanted to you. You were getting it from the front of house in terms of the complaints, and then you'd have to filter it to the cook, who would abuse you in turn. You know what I mean? It's quite a stressful job really, especially like I say at 17, when I was like, you know, had no self-esteem at all whatsoever anyway. And there were these two big guys in the back as well. You know, I'm little, I'm only like 5'2". These were guys who were 6 foot plus easily, you know what I mean? And they had this thing of, they would, you know, pick up one of the waitresses in particular, and they'd throw her in the skip out the back into the garbage with the trash. And it's not easy to climb out of one of those big things, you know. They thought that was terribly funny, you know, it was amusing. And I just remember thinking, God, if they do that to me, I will absolutely die, because I won't know what to do. I'll just fall apart, you know. It's making me feel teary just thinking about it. And anyway, there was one day where they decided it was my turn, and they shut me in the walk-in. I don't know if it was the freezer or the fridge, but it was a walk-in thing. They didn't do it for very long. I think they knew, no doubt I was projecting some kind of energy. I think they knew they couldn't do it very long to me, you know what I mean? But but even then, after a few minutes, they opened the thing and I just couldn't talk. I was like crying and the rest of it. And they realised then that they'd really fucked up, basically, you know, because it became a thing because management had to say something and the rest of it. And I was treated respectfully after that. And I think it was an important thing that happened, because it made them wake up to their own actions, because people fall into these rhythms of thinking that kind of thing is okay to do when they get away with it for long and long enough. They think it becomes familiar, it becomes just part of the environment or whatever you want. They don't think about what the person on the other end of that is thinking, and that's what's been happening to Justin all this time. Ryan and Blake are going after what they want, what they perceive as their right to have. They couldn't give a crap about what Justin Baldoni is going through. So I think actually all of this that's happening right now is really important, because it's really giving them a big wake up, and it's showing them, look, it's not just a few random people that think what you've done is wrong. It's most of the world that are aware of it. You know what I mean? Are you going to wake up? And it's interesting to see whether they will. Luckily for me, in that restaurant, I ended up actually being quite good friends with those chefs that had done that to me. And that's the thing. When you hold people accountable, and when you hold yourself accountable for your own actions, it changes everything. You can make new friends out of people that were your enemies. It can change everything, the dynamic. You know, I was quite looked after that. After that happened to me, you know, particularly one of the chefs, he really did look out for me and make sure I was okay. So putting up with banter just because you don't want to make waves, or you're afraid of crying at work, or you're afraid of getting upset, or you're afraid of making a stand, you're actually doing everybody a disservice. And that's kind of really cool about Justin right now, that yes, he's got like a billionaire behind him that probably nobody realised beforehand, you know, when they set out on this thing. But he is the little guy in all of this, and he's taken it and taken it and taken it in terms of what they did to him on that movie set, and taking away the controls and sticking him in the basement at his own premiere. But they've pushed him so far, they thought they could keep going and going and going and just take everything and brand him as a sexual harasser. And he's, at this point, he's thought, no, because you're not going to take away who I am as a person, as well as my livelihood and the rest of it. And he's pushed back, and he's keeping pushing back, and he's holding his ground, and he's keeping going. And that's what I really respect about all this, because in actual fact, he's doing Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds a service, because he's saying, are you going to change the way you operate in this life? Are you going to look at your own life and why you do this and why you think this is acceptable? I'm going to hold you. You don't seem to have any personal accountability, so I'm going to force you. I'm going to force you to have some, accountability of some kind if you refuse to have any personal accountability. And I would want anybody that's out there that goes through their life doing snarky, sarcasm, banter. If that is your whole thing, and your whole thing is, making people feel cringe on the other end of it, that don't know whether you're being mean to them or whether you mean it or whether you don't mean it. If you're one of these people that go through your life like that, not able to answer a real question with a real answer, let me tell you now, you have a lot of work to do, because you live your life from this mean perspective. Sooner or later, something really big is going to blow up in your life that will make you face up to yourself. It's inevitable. You don't get to go through life not being in touch with who you are on a very real basis, and not doing anything about the pain that underlies all of that. You're going to give yourself serious illness or something at the very least, you know what I mean? Because you've got all this bitterness and resentment and regret and hurt and pain all boiling away inside, and you're covering it with snark and sarcasm and banter and meanness and making other people feel smaller than you actually feel in reality. So it is a big wake-up call. It's all of this. And that's what I find really, really interesting, because I do believe we should all get the chance in life to kind of turn a corner and be the better version of ourselves. I know I've had to kind of take accountability for a lot of my own things and a lot of my own weaknesses and a lot of things that I could have changed a lot sooner. And it does entirely change your life when you do that. So when you come across some of these people in life that you ask them a straightforward question and they have to be snotty back to you every time, or answer it with sarcasm or a joke at your expense, just pat yourself on the back and know that at this point in time you're the better person, you're the bigger person, and just hold out hope for them one day that, somebody shows a mirror up to them in the most gentle way possible, because otherwise they're likely to just get smacked over the head with the same mirror, and they'll be picking up the pieces like Blake Lively is scurrying to do right now. Okay, thank you very much for watching, and do please consider liking and subscribing, and there's always free resources in the description of all of my videos, and I'll see you again soon. Thank you very much. Goodbye.